It's no surprise that UFC fighters are scared to fight Alexander Volkanovski. The man has been dominating the featherweight division since he entered the UFC back in 2016, and his list of accomplishments is simply remarkable. He's taken out some of the greatest featherweight fighters in UFC history with ease, and he just doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. In this video, we'll be checking out exactly why UFC fighters absolutely hate fighting Volka. Let's dive in. First up, his fighting styles. Alexander Volkanovski is a terrifying fighter due to the combination of different martial arts techniques he is trained in. His base style is striking, which comes from his Muay Thai training and boxing skills. He's renowned for his heavy punches and kicks, as demonstrated by his impressive knockout power, but what really sets him apart is his defensive grappling. Volkanovski is trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Greco-Roman wrestling, and also Judo, which he uses to defend himself against takedowns as well as submissions. He's even managed to escape some of the trickiest submission holds with his defensive grappling prowess, which is quite remarkable considering his size and weight. On the ground, Volkanovski uses positional control to gain top pins in order to land punches and work for a finish. Volkanovski is also dangerous because of the combination of his striking and grappling. His opponents often have difficulty getting close enough to throw strikes, lest they be taken down by all manner of weird throws and sweeps. Once he's on top, Volkanovski can use his ground and pound to wear down opponents and land brutal knockout blows that have made him one of the most feared fighters in the UFC. With such an impressive skill set, it's no wonder why many fighters are scared to fight Alexander Volkanovski. Up next, he dominated from the very beginning. Alexander Volkanovski was dominant right from the start in the UFC. His first fight was against Yusuke Kasuya at UFC Fight Night 101 on November 27, 2016. He won via unanimous decision, displaying his superior striking and grappling ability. His next bout was with Kyle Bochniak at UFC 223 on April 7, 2018. Again, he took the win via unanimous decision, showcasing his superior striking accuracy and power. In his next fight against Darren Elkins at UFC Fight Night 133 on July 14, 2018, he won by another unanimous decision. This time, it was due to his superior grappling skills, as he was able to take Elkins down in the second round and keep him there for the remainder of the round. Volkanovski went on to defeat Jeremy Kennedy at UFC 221 on February 11, 2019. This time he won via TKO, demonstrating his devastating striking power. In May 2019, Volkanovski faced Jose Aldo for the featherweight championship at UFC 237. After a closely contested 5-round fight, Volkanovski emerged victorious with a unanimous decision victory. Volkanovski then went on to successfully defend his title against Max Holloway on July 11, 2020, and Brian Ortega on September 25, 2021. Both fights ended in unanimous decision victories for Volkanovski, cementing him as one of the best featherweight fighters in UFC history. He then went on to win a highly anticipated trilogy bout against Holloway at UFC 276 on July 2, 2022. Volkanovski won the bout via unanimous decision, with all three judges scoring the fight 50-45. This win further cemented Volkanovski's place as one of the greatest featherweight UFC fighters of all time. Coming up, his rugby background. At just 5 feet 6 inches tall, Alexander Volkanovski is a force to be reckoned with in the UFC featherweight division. But before he was an international MMA superstar, this Australian athlete carved out a reputation of fearlessness in the rugby league, taking on opponents much bigger than himself and winning. His former teammate Ngatai Hatet, who played with Alexander on the Warilla Gorillas club, spoke to The Athletic about his size versus strength advantage on the rugby field. Alex would just carry blokes, he said. He had no fear no matter how big they were. If someone twice the size of him started picking on him or tried to fight him, he would clean them up. You wouldn't want to pick a fight with him no matter how big they were. This fearlessness is what has propelled Alexander to the top of his division in the UFC. Weighing in at 145 pounds today, far less than when he first started fighting in the UFC, Alexander still manages to stand above his opponents both in physicality and skill. On the Joe Rogan Experience, he spoke of a specific fight when he was still in rugby league. He was up against Shrek, probably the biggest player in the league at 7 foot and 150 kilos. Despite being the underdog, Alex had no fear and jumped up to try to punch him in the head. Unfortunately, he lost that fight, but it only made him stronger. He realized that even though Shrek was bigger, he needed to be more agile and skilled, so he began training in MMA full-time. Alexander's dedication has paid off, and he's now an unbeatable UFC champion. Next, he has no clear weaknesses. Alexander Volkanovski is a modern-day gladiator, an absolute courageous warrior of the UFC octagon that's scared of no one, and one that has no weaknesses that his opponents can exploit. Alexander Volkanovski is more than just courageous, though. He's also incredibly skilled. He has an impressive grappling defense and can outstrike the best kickboxers in his division with ease. Just look at his fights against Jose Aldo and Max Holloway, or even Brian Ortega, a submission specialist. He has never been taken down much in his UFC career, and it seems like there's no one who can outdo him on the ground. To top it off, he's also the current UFC champion and pound-for-pound #1. It's not hard to understand why UFC fighters would be a bit scared to face him in the octagon. Alexander Volkanovski appears to be about as unbeatable as a UFC fighter gets right now, and rightly deserves the title of Alexander the Great. Fearless, determined, and incredibly skilled, it's not easy to go toe-to-toe with this modern-day gladiator. No wonder so many UFC fighters are scared to fight him. Up next, he dominates every weight class he's in. Alexander Volkanovski has long been a feared name among UFC fighters, and that's because he's the closest thing to an unstoppable force in the sport right now. Not only is he immensely courageous and skilled, but also incredibly versatile. Most people know him as a featherweight champion, but what they don't know is that he's fought in a higher weight class before. He started his MMA career as a welterweight and then dropped to 155 pounds for his 6th fight. From there, Volkanovski bounced around between 155 pounds and 145 pounds before settling as a featherweight in 2015. When he initially arrived in the UFC in 2016, though, he came in as a lightweight and defeated Yusuke Kasuya in his octagon debut before dropping back to 145 pounds. This is an incredible feat of strength and versatility, and it only adds to the aura of Volkanovski's greatness. His ability to compete in multiple weight classes suggests that Alexander Volkanovski is the very definition of a pound-for-pound great, and he's definitely the kind of opponent that no UFC fighter wants to take on. His fights against Jose Aldo or Max Holloway or even Brian Ortega showcase a fighter that can easily adjust his fighting style regardless of who he's fighting. Coming up, he might be even better pound for pound than Kamaru Usman. Let's be real here. Alexander Volkanovski has put fear into the hearts of all featherweight fighters out there. This guy is a certified GOAT. Having beaten some of the greatest featherweights to ever step foot in the octagon, his victories over Chad Mendes, Brian Ortega, Max Holloway, and Jose Aldo? Yeah, no one can say that he didn't earn his title as featherweight king. On the contrary, Kamaru Usman hasn't quite been able to reach the same heights. Sure, he's had some great fights and taken down some top welterweights like Tyrone Woodley, Colby Covington, and Jorge Masvidal, but Usman still hasn't been able to surpass the legacies of Matt Hughes and George St. Pierre. Those two retired before the Nigerian Nightmare even made it to the top, but that's not so for Alexander Volkanovski. Alexander has essentially beaten the best 4 fighters featherweight has ever seen, aside from himself. That's why he should and does go down in history as the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the UFC. He's made a name for himself that scares any featherweight who even thinks about challenging him, and rightfully so. Even if Usman might have his own legacy at welterweight, he'll never measure up to what Alexander has done in the featherweight division. And finally, he's showing no signs of slowing down. While most fighters like Conor McGregor started showing signs of slowing down after their heyday, Alexander Volkanovski is still going strong. This can probably be attributed to his disciplined approach and professional attitude toward the sport. Alexander the Great Volkanovski isn't your typical fighter. He proves time and time again that he has what it takes to remain at the top of the featherweight division. Unlike many fighters, Volkanovski has managed to stay at the top since his ascension and is showing no signs of slowing down. Volkanovski's approach has been nothing short of remarkable. He understands what it takes to stay successful in a sport that often sees champions come and go in the blink of an eye. It can be argued that his disciplined approach and professional attitude towards MMA have been integral to his success thus far. For instance, Alexander has never shied away from training hard. He continually works on improving himself both physically and mentally. He also keeps his body in top form by engaging in a strict diet and workout regimen. His mental preparation for a fight is also noteworthy. He can often be seen visualizing his upcoming bout, which helps him stay focused in the build-up to the fight. The fact that Volkanovski has held on to his UFC featherweight title for so long is a testament to his hard work and dedication. Even when he's faced some of the toughest opponents in the division, Alexander has managed to stay focused and come out on top. His impressive record speaks for itself. His knockout victories over Jeremy Jeremy Kennedy, Chad Mendes, and Jung Chan Sung will remain iconic for years to come. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Volkanovski will continue to be this dominant in the UFC? Let us know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.